Sean Astin, beloved for his roles in iconic films like The Goonies, Rudy, and The Lord of the Rings, has often credited his success not only to his talent but also to the meaningful life lessons he received growing up in a unique and complicated Hollywood family. One particular piece of advice, given by his father John Astin just before Sean auditioned for The Goonies, would prove to be both life-changing and deeply personal, a guiding light that helped shape his career and his character. Sean Astin was born into a world of cinema and celebrity, but that didn't mean his path to stardom was handed to him. His mother, Patty Duke, was an Academy Award-winning actress. His father, John Astin, gained fame for his quirky and unforgettable performance as Gomez Addams in the Addams Family television series. However, Sean's upbringing wasn't without complications. For many years, there was confusion about his paternity, a situation that the public watched unfold in tabloids and interviews. Eventually, Sean embraced both the man who raised him, John Astin, and his biological father, Michael Tell, as part of his extended family. But when it came to fatherly wisdom, it was John Astin who provided the most enduring and influential guidance. Just before Sean's audition for The Goonies, a film that would go on to define a generation of childhood adventure, he was full of nerves and self-doubt. It was the mid-1980s, and Sean was still very young, with only a few credits to his name. Despite having Hollywood in his blood, he didn't yet feel like he belonged in the industry. The competition was fierce, and he knew that nailing this audition could open doors, or slam them shut. That's when John Astin pulled his son aside and gave him a piece of advice that would stick with him for the rest of his life. "Sean," John said, "don't try to be what you think they want. Be yourself. That's what people remember." It sounds simple. But in an industry built on masks, roles, and expectations, being told to simply be yourself is not only rare, it's revolutionary. John's advice was not just about acting. It was a message about authenticity, self-worth, and integrity. He knew the traps of the business, the way young actors can lose themselves trying to fit molds or please casting directors. He wanted Sean to understand that what would make him stand out wasn't how perfectly he could mimic someone else's idea of a character, but how well he could bring his own spirit into the room. Sean took those words with him into the audition. He remembers walking into the casting room, still nervous, but grounded by his father's encouragement. He wasn't there to impress anyone with a fake persona. He was there to show who he was, and why he would be the perfect Mikey Walsh, not by acting like Mikey, but by becoming him. The audition went well. So well, in fact, that he landed the part. And as soon as The Goonies hit theaters, it became clear that John Astin's advice had paid off. Sean's portrayal of Mikey, the asthmatic, determined, big-hearted leader of the misfit crew, was unforgettable. Audiences didn't just see a performance, they saw a real kid with real emotions, vulnerability, and courage. That moment would prove pivotal, not just for Sean's career, but for his personal philosophy. Throughout his journey in Hollywood, from playing the underdog football player in Rudy to the loyal Samwise Gamgee in The Lord of the Rings, Sean has embodied characters who are deeply human, vulnerable, and brave. And in each performance, there's a piece of that original advice echoing in the background: be yourself. What's perhaps even more meaningful is how Sean has passed that lesson on. Over the years, he's become an advocate for young actors, often speaking at schools, film programs, and fan conventions. He tells his story, not to boast, but to remind people that authenticity is a form of power. In an industry that often demands conformity and image, staying grounded in who you are is a radical and admirable act. He also speaks candidly about the pressures he faced growing up with famous parents. He never tried to outshine them, nor did he coast on their legacies. John Astin's advice freed him from the shadow of his parents' fame and gave him permission to carve his own path. That path wasn't always smooth. There were roles he lost, missteps he made, and periods of uncertainty. But the idea that who he was, flaws, quirks, and all, was enough, became his North Star. John Astin, for his part, has always spoken with pride about Sean. In interviews, he's described his son as thoughtful, intelligent, and determined. He's admired Sean's work ethic and his dedication to his craft. But most importantly, he's admired the man Sean became, someone who didn't just chase fame but chased meaning. One especially touching moment came when the two shared the stage at a fan convention. A fan asked Sean what his father meant to him, and without missing a beat, Sean said, "He taught me how to be a man, how to be kind, how to be real." The room went quiet, and John, visibly emotional, reached over and squeezed Sean's hand. It was a reminder that some lessons transcend the stage or screen. They shape who we are as people. Sean continued to grow his career, taking on producing, directing, and voice acting. He never strayed far from those core values. He's raised his own family with the same emphasis on integrity, respect, and authenticity. And every now and then, when he's asked for advice, especially by those just starting out, he returns to the words his father once gave him. Don't try to be what you think they want. Be yourself. It's a piece of advice that could apply to anyone, not just actors. In a world where so many people feel pressured to curate perfect images, where social media often blurs the line between reality and performance, being genuine has become a rare and valuable trait. Sean Astin is proof that authenticity not only leads to better art, it leads to a better life. In interviews today, Sean still lights up when he talks about the Goonies. He recalls the friendships, the excitement, the chaotic energy of kids running around a set that felt like a playground. But more than that, he remembers how it all began, with a father's quiet wisdom, offered in a moment of uncertainty. That advice didn't just land him a role. It gave him a lifelong foundation. It reminded him that being enough isn't about being perfect, it's about being honest, present, and uniquely you. That message continues to resonate, not just in Sean's performances, but in the way he carries himself in life. Fans of the Goonies may remember Mikey's inspirational speeches about never giving up, about believing in yourself and your friends. What they may not realize is that behind those words was a young actor who truly believed them, because his father taught him to. And so, the story of Sean Astin and his audition for the Goonies isn't just a behind-the-scenes Hollywood anecdote. It's a reminder of the power of encouragement, of authenticity, and of fathers who know just when to say the right thing. For Sean Astin, that one piece of advice before a major audition wasn't just about landing a role, it was about discovering his voice, his strength, and his path forward.